About this. You've heard from the Democratic side, but Republicans may have bigger problems than just the Democrats as they face discord and resistance from far-right members of their own party. One group, though, has a vested interest in the remake of Obamacare, particularly the Medicaid expansion part. Governors. Let's bring in Republican governor and former 2016 presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Liz. Great to be on.
Okay, before we get to that sticking point of what to do about Medicaid expansion, you strike me as the kind of guy who could figure out ways to get the Hatfields and the McCoys talking and maybe even to a barbecue together. What should the Republicans do to get Democrats like Representative Crowley to open the lines of communication? You just heard he said it is possible.
Well, I think it is possible, but one of the things that has to happen is there has to be open meetings, and they have to massage this. This is not easy. Everybody thinks, well, this shouldn't be hard. Well, it is hard. You got 535 people in Congress. Everybody wants to go into the kitchen with their own spoon and their own spice and somehow make this thing work. It ain't that easy. So for those who have never legislated, who have never governed, and who talk about how this ought to be a cinch, it ain't a cinch. It's tough. It's heavy lifting. So slow it down, get it right. It's better to do it right than it is to do it over. And it's always less expensive to do it right.
Well,
but to do it right, they need to be listening to the states. And Liz, that's where I think the biggest challenge is.
Well, to that point, the governors of the 31 states, and Governor Kasich of Ohio included, and Arkansas too, they did have the expansion of Medicaid. We can put up the map and see which states did it. But, you know, millions of low-income adults have that now, and there is concern that they won't have it in the new plan. And of course, the CBO score comes out Monday. It may show, hey, this thing squares properly with cost, because possibly up to 11 million people, we don't know the real numbers, may be without coverage if the Medicaid expansion part goes away.
Liz, the key is making sure that the states have flexibility to implement it in a way that makes sense for their unique demographics in their state. All 50 states aren't alike. So what you need to do in Arkansas is going to be very different than what you need to do in Massachusetts, and that has to be part of this. Give the governors flexibility. Most governors would take less money for their Medicaid program if they had maximum flexibility to operate it in a way that makes sense for their populations. But here's something that has to happen. Medicaid, it's not a bad program. It saves the lives of a lot of people, and for poor people, it is a lifeline. So, you know, some people that are very disparaging to Medicaid don't understand it. But here's the challenge. Build in copays, deductibles, and premiums. Small, affordable, not that would prevent someone from getting the health care they need, but it also is the only thing that controls utilization. If you don't do that, it's unsustainable. It'll wreck the budget of every state and the federal government.
The president has hosted one, and he's supposed to host another sort of bowling and pizza with Republicans. Do you think it would go a long way to maybe bring some Democrats over to do the same thing, to hear what they have to say? This way it gets a better chance of getting through?
You know, this president has already done that. Look at the fact that he brought Elijah Cummings in. He has invited Democrats to come. Some won't go see him, but he has done more in 45 days than President Obama did in 8 years in terms of saying, let's sit down at the table, break bread together, maybe, you know, bust some bowling pins together, whatever they're going to do, but let's have relationships. Because, Liz, at the end of the day, legislation is as much about relationships as it is the text of the legislation.
Well, we know who knew that.
And that's what I think the president is doing. He's doing it. Now members of Congress have to step up and join him.
Yeah, we know that Reagan and Clinton were able to do that. Governor, great to see you. Wear sunscreen. Yes, you're making me nervous. You're so tan.
Life of Florida. It's a great place to be right now.
Governor Mike Huckabee, we thank you very much. Close